Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Casey. I don't introduce myself enough. My name is Casey, and this is a series about building an island for our kitchen. Now, this is actually part 2 of this series. If you want to go back and see the start of this project where I built this carcass for the kitchen island and talk a little bit about my inspiration, I'll put a link to that down in the description below so you can check that out. So when I last left you, I was trying out some stain samples to figure out what color I want to stain this thing. This is going to be the first stained piece of woodworking that I've ever made. I did build the cabinets in our kitchen, but those are all painted, and I learned a lot through that process. And so for this build, I'm using a little bit nicer wood. I'm using a maple for this. I used poplar and birch for the cabinets in the kitchen. And I'm also making this look more like a piece of furniture instead of like a built-in island. So now I need to start staining this. But before I can stain it, I actually need to sand some of the places where I filled some pocket holes because this thing is put together with pocket holes and pocket hole screws. So I did have a couple of places where I just need to fill those. So I've got those filled. I can probably go ahead and start sanding those. And then I have picked out some stain that I want to use for this. And I think I'm going to use the stain color Honey from Varathane. I think this is going to be closest to the wood tone and color that I wanted for this island. I basically wanted to match a little wood Lazy Susan in our kitchen because I really like the color of it. I thought it worked well with the color of our floors as well. I'm staining this piece before I build the drawers and add the top because I wanted to just go ahead and get this in the kitchen. And installing the drawers and attaching the top, I can do all of that inside. That's not going to be as big of a construction project as this main carcass was. But if all goes well, I might be able to stain everything today, which would be fantastic. And then we could just go ahead and move this into the kitchen. I have a butcher block top that I'm gonna be putting on here. I'm also planning to stain that. And then of course I have to build drawers to go in this thing. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I need to stain this. Little pyramid thingies that can lift stuff up when you're painting it. I'm gonna see if I can get these under here. I don't know. Hopefully it's not too heavy. Just to kind of lift it off the floor a little bit. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna be using a pre-stained wood conditioner also from Varathane. I've actually never used this before. I mean, I used it for my little samples. I couldn't tell much of a difference on the samples that I did. Every video I've ever watched about people staining wood, they say this stuff is good to use. And even on this label, it says that it's great for woods like pine, maple, I can't remember the other wood, but anyway, so I think it would be a good idea for me to condition this before staining it. I've got this size, but I have another one of these that I bought a while back. I have a feeling this will be plenty to condition this whole thing. So I'm gonna put this on, and then I'll wait 30 minutes before I start staining. Oh boy.
We're gonna beef these out.
Okay.
Beefy time.
All right.
Oh my God, he's running.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
We got a sprinter.
Oh boy.
He is sprint. What are you doing? Oh my God, he's looking so nice. I gotta go see my mom. What do you got going on here?
I am conditioning this wood.
What's that do?
It's supposed to just make the stain less splotchy on certain woods. So I'm gonna do that, condition the whole thing, and I gotta wait 30 minutes. I may have to go to the store and get some more stain because I just got little small sample sizes. This stuff is strong. So I'm super paranoid about starting a fire with all of these oil rags, oil-based stain rags. So the way that I read to properly dispose of them is to lay them out flat, let them dry completely, and then throw them away. You just don't want to ball them up and put them all in like a garbage can while they're wet, because then they can combust. But laying them out flat should do the trick. Oh, hang on. I gotta switch hands. Okay, ready? Okay. This thing is heavy. Okay. Woo! Oh my gosh. Wow. This is looking good. That is a big island.
That looks really nice.
It does. I'm excited. Wow, it makes such a difference just having the top on there, doesn't it? Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and condition the top and get it ready for staining. And I'm not going to attach it just yet. I just wanted to get it up here so I could stain it more easily. But I am going to tape off the part that I've already stained just so that I don't make it darker underneath. And in case anybody is wondering, this is technically a butcher block top, but I'm not planning to do any kind of food chopping or prep directly on this surface because I just don't want to mess it up over time. So the products that I'm using to finish this are not necessarily food safe, but I think it'll be fine. I have chopping blocks and all of that I use anyway, so I'm not going to be doing any prep directly on this surface. So I'm just gonna do the wood conditioner, the same pre-stained wood conditioner that I did on the rest of the cabinet. I'll let that dry about 30 minutes and then I will do a coat of the stain. Now, when I stained the other side of this, I did not sand it, and there were some kind of splotchy areas, I think, where some of the glue residue from the way this piece was laminated together at the factory kind of was left. So I did go through and sand the other side really well before conditioning it and staining it, and I think the result turned out a lot better by doing that. So anyway, the side that I originally thought was going to be the top is now the bottom, and this is the new top. So I just did the same thing, applying the stain and then wiping it away with a clean cloth. And I love how beautifully this top took the stain. It looks really, really nice. And this is a pre-made butcher block. So it's just a butcher block countertop that you can buy in various sizes. I got the 3 foot by 6 foot top. And so I worked my way back from that 3 foot by 6 foot top when I was designing the size of this cabinet. All right, it's the next day. Wait, what day is it? All right, it's been a couple of days and I'm ready to polyurethane this table. I kind of had a little moment of second guessing the stain color yesterday because I felt like it looked a little bit orange. So I did a little test on some of the scrap plywood that I had. I just wanted to see how it would look if I added some of that red oak, which is actually not very red. It's a little bit more brown, a little bit more green in the tone. I added that on top of it. It made objectively no difference. It was a little bit darker, but it really didn't change the color that much. And so I've just been kind of sitting with this for a little while and I think the color's fine. I think I'm kind of overthinking the color a little bit. Worst case scenario, I get this thing polyurethaned a month from now. I'm like, you know what? I still feel like the color's a little too orange. I can just sand it down and restain it if I absolutely have to. But I think the color's fine. See, this is what I do. I kind of go through a little bit of a spiral sometimes with some of the decisions that I have to make on some of these projects, but the reality is they're all fixable if I decide later down the road that I'm not super happy with it. And even talking about it right now, I'm like, I actually really like the color a lot. I just start staring at it so long that I start picking it apart. All of that being said, I am gonna polyurethane this today. Now, because I'm using a water-based polyurethane, this is also a Varathane product. I'm using a water-based polyurethane and I use an oil-based stain, which is totally fine. You can do that, but all of the recommendations say to make sure that your stain is totally dry, give it a day or 2 or even 3 to dry. So I gave this about 3 days to dry. So it should be just fine with the water-based polyurethane. Now, the reason that I use the water-based polyurethane is because apparently oil-based polyurethane is notorious for turning yellow over time. And I think there are some products out there that are supposed to be non-yellowing, but I decided to just go with water-based because it's pretty known that it doesn't yellow like an oil-based polyurethane would. I also picked the crystal clear satin finish on this because I don't want this to be super shiny. I wouldn't mind it having a little bit of a luster. Again, if I decide I need it more shiny, I can just go get some semi-gloss or high gloss. But I think the satin's gonna work great. I also put a drop cloth underneath this because I am gonna be doing this inside the house. I'm gonna make sure I open up all the windows and get some nice ventilation in here. I just really didn't wanna move this back outside again. You know, I'm ready to start using this table, even though I still have to do the drawers. So it's a Saturday, I'm just gonna spend the day putting some coats of polyurethane on this. And I've been kind of terrorizing my husband because I won't let him put anything on this until I get it polyurethane. So hopefully after today, we can actually start using this surface in the kitchen. But it really has already made a difference in here. It feels so good to have this piece of furniture in here that looks like it was meant for this space, and just having so much more prep surface and eventually more storage is gonna be such a game changer in here. Every little bit we do in this kitchen makes me so happy. It gets closer and closer to my dream kitchen. So anyhow, I'm gonna quit rambling and I'm gonna get some polyurethane on this. Following the recommendations on the polyurethane instructions, I did 3 coats of this polyurethane, sanding lightly in between coats. So I'm barely sanding this, I'm just trying to kind of knock down some of the rough texture to give it a nice smooth surface for the next coat. And it does create a very fine white dust when you do this, which is normal. And I just use a tack cloth to get all of that dust off before adding the next coat of polyurethane. I use these tack cloths so much whenever I'm doing any kind of painting where I have to sand in between coats. They are so handy and they really do pick up so much dust. Okay, so I'm waiting on the second coat of polyurethane to dry on the table before I put a new coat on. And I'm gonna start cutting the drawers for the table. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark out 5.5 inch increments. That's how tall the drawers are gonna be. And then I'm also gonna mark where I want the grooves for the dados. So the dados are just gonna be a groove around the perimeter of the bottom of the drawer, where I'm gonna slide in a 1/4 inch piece of plywood that will be the bottom of the drawer box once I get them constructed. I did look up a dado blade for my table saw, but the table saw that I have actually does not take dado blades. It's too small. So it's just not the right kind of table saw. So I think I'm gonna try to cut those with the circular saw. So anyway, my husband's starting to mow. I'm gonna get to cutting and stop talking. To make it a little easier to cut my dados without my plywood shifting around too much, I'm just gonna go ahead and mark out all of the lines for the actual drawer depths and the dado lines. I'll be using this Craig track for my circular saw to make all of my cuts, and I'm starting with the dado cuts. So I've got my circular saw set to a 1/4 inch depth, and I have to go through this about 3 or 4 times for each of the 1/4 inch wide dados that I'm creating. And so this first cut was a little bit of trial and error to make sure that I get my dado just the right depth, but it actually turned out okay. I do have one little cut that was a little too deep, but that's not really gonna matter once all this is put together. So I just continued the process of cutting the dados first. Once I had those dados cut, I could go through and actually cut the drawer depths. once all of these strips were cut, I took them over to my miter saw. I don't have any footage of this for some reason, but I took these over to my miter saw and cut them down to the size that I need for each box. Okay, so now I'm just going to add pocket holes to the short pieces. So these are going to be, oh gosh, freaking stink bugs. These are going to be the front and the back pieces, and then they're going to be between, let's see. Well, anyway, the dados will line up, but they'll be like this. They'll kind of butt into the side pieces. So I'm just going to put pocket holes on the exterior side on both ends of all of the short pieces. I started out using my corner clamps to help me hold this in position while I screwed it in, but it turned out that the corner clamps were just kind of getting in the way and a little too bulky, so I continued without them and found that it was just as easy to kind of hold it in place at the corner and make sure that I hold that edge flush with the corner when I screwed it in. And once I started doing this, the process went really quickly. I'm going to wait to put the other side on these. I'm going to go ahead and cut some 1/4 inch plywood to slip into the dados. Then I'll put the back side on. I have learned so much about woodworking just from watching YouTube videos here, and one of the YouTube channels that has been really helpful for me when it comes to woodworking has been the Shara Woodshop Diaries, I think is the name of the channel. I've shared it here before, but she has a really great channel that has a lot of resources for woodworking, and she goes into a lot more depth on how to get the right sizing and everything when you're building cabinets and drawer boxes and all of that. So shout out to Shara Woodshop Diaries. I will put a link to her channel down in the description. And the drawer boxes are done. So I did this for all 6 drawers. They're all exactly the same size. And I think I'm going to leave you guys here and pick up next week with installing the drawer boxes, adding the fronts, and finishing this island. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.